As Aztecs and Mayans, first civilizations began to domesticate various plants around 10,000 BC, corn was at the forefront of this agricultural revolution. Initially, corn began as a wild grass called teosinte. Teosinte kernels were small and were not placed close together. Since then, a variation of plant breeding resulted in the corn we see today. The domestication can be targeted back around Mexico. Corn has been a staple food for many Mesoamerican societies, as it served as a main source of energy. Individuals traded labor for corn and other resources to sustain their families. Regardless of the time period, tortillas have remained a staple in many Mexican households. In 1937, the Mexican government began to regulate crop production, ensuring that all households had access to staple food products like tortillas. In 1965, CONAPSU, which can be translated to the National Basic Food Agency, distributed foods like beans, barley, corn, sunflower, and many others. Corn being the most important, as it made up 65% of the crops being regulated. In 1982, the Mexican government was told to relinquish control of major crop production and did, except on corn, and had spent more and more money in keeping programs like CONAPSU running compared to other government assistance programs like healthcare. As the individuals participated had continuous increase, the program flourished in comparison to its initiation in 1965. The major return to the public was access to tortillas or tortilla subsidies. In 1990, a program called Tortillas Sin Costo began and offered 1 kilo of tortillas per day, and this was 50% of what individuals consumed every day. Later, it was found that the government was hiding money or stating false reports of profit on the corn, and resulted in a reformation of corn agriculture. In 2007, 75,000 people in Mexico marched to end the rising prices of tortillas, coining the slogan, Sin maíz no hay país, which translates to, without corn, there is no country. Why? Many blame the U.S. ethanol subsidies and high oil prices, but this ethanol used yellow corn and tortillas used white corn. Others blame the oil prices, but there could be no significant link attributed to this. A more realistic attribution to rising prices was the monopolistic practices. For example, Gruma controlled 70% of tortilla and cornmeal markets. Mexico remains to be one of the largest producers of not only corn, but the mass production of tortillas. Although tortillas have been around for thousands of years, the name tortilla was given by the Spaniards, as it reminded them of their tortas, which are round cakes or omelets. The globalization of tortillas has expanded immensely since the arrival of the Spaniards. As Mexico's population diversified and expanded, so did the demand for tortillas. From 1945 to 1980, the industry grew tenfold, and in 2019 was considered a $4 billion industry with expected rise. Today, you can walk into many grocery stores and find a wide variety of tortillas, wheat, corn, flour, and alternative versions of the original tortilla. But how are tortillas made? Although each company or mom has their own way to develop the tortilla, they all share similar ingredients: masa, which is a product of corn, water, salt, baking soda, a cup of vegetable oil, shortening, or lard. First, corn kernels are separated from the corn cob through a series of machines or by an individual who will pick them apart with their hands. The corn kernels are then placed into a vat of warm water, and lime, also known as calcium hydroxide, is mixed with the kernels for steeping. Steeping times range between 4 to 16 hours, depending on the volume of the batch. The addition of lime, or calcium hydroxide, is a method that allows for microbial stability, reduces risk of pellagra disease, increases calcium intake because the kernels absorb most of the calcium while steeping, increase resistance to starch content for individuals, reduce mycotoxins in corn kernels, increase viability of iron for those who are consuming of the tortillas. Once the kernels have been steeping for a while, a foam begins to form and the kernels begin to soften. This process is called nixtamalization. The lime allows for the pericarp around the kernel to be removed. The modified kernels are then placed in a molino, which usually consists of a lava type of rock. With a bit of water, it is ground up, creating masa. The grinding of the corn is essential, and even in mass or small productions, lava rocks are seen as the right kind of tool to get the right type of consistency for the masa. Yet other mass producers do not see the cost benefit and have opted for basic milling of the corn. Once the dough is made, the amount used for each tortilla is critical to the size and feel of the tortilla. Industry uses big presses to get the dough a certain thickness, and individuals take that into their hands or use small little balls and press them in singular presses to get the right consistency. The dough is then baked at low temperatures on a comal for a relatively long period of time to achieve the toast marks and reach a specific elasticity. Then it is cooled. Nowadays, many companies and even individuals in villages have opted for similar milling instead of hand milling, as it can be very labor intensive. Although big machine milling is favored over hand milling, it is important to consider the loss of the lava stones for milling and the slow wood fires for roasting. These methods are considered outdated for big companies, but many individuals or small companies are pushing for these outdated methods of tortilla making to stay. Lava rocks and slow wood fires are said to make a major impact on the flavor and texture of the tortillas. The major difference for consumers, apart from the taste or feel, is the cost. The mass production of tortillas allows for global access and the low cost of the product. It is expected that many major companies will push for the mass production, avoiding small fire heating and lava stone use, as maintenance and acquisition of the stone and fire pits are costly. The elimination of such traditional methods will overall yield lower costs and allow for companies to be more profitable. Although tortillas are expected to stick around for a long time, the craft is in jeopardy of being lost for the sake of saving a couple bucks per meal. Is it worth it? What do you think?